The Fantasy Edge with Richard Savill and Dennis Sosic.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Edge. I'm Richard Savill of FantasySixPack.net, and joining me shortly is Dennis Sosic, also of FantasySixPack.net. We also have a special guest joining us a little later, and Davis Peng is here with Peng's Picks. This week we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're not doing any waivers this week because, waivers is, that's kind of mid-season stuff. So everybody's having a happy holiday, and we're going to be doing our season in review, talking about players and things that happened during the season. But first of all, we got to get into the news and get Dennis in the show. And now a proper on-air Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to Dennis. Hey, Dennis.
Happy holidays, Richard. How are you?
A lot better. A bit of I have to admit to tell our listeners that a lot of last minute doings with me. I was a bit late with getting the sheet ready for our podcast and stuff, and we wanted to get on with the podcast and get it going. But we're here and we're ready. We're ready to go. We're ready and raring to go. And let's start off with the news. Well, I guess the big news: Nathaniel Hackett fired as the Broncos head coach. Mid-season fire. Well, late season firing, but it was bound to happen. But what do you think of the Broncos and the head coach? Does firing Nathaniel Hackett solve the problems?
No, they should have fired him a long time ago. He was a train wreck all season, and I'm surprised he lasted this long in the season. And after that debacle on this weekend, they just seen enough as well. So can't do a merciful end, thank God.
You kind of evaded the question there. Does it solve the problems?
No. Russell Wilson's part of the problem. He is, I think he's a little bit washed. A lot of it's Hackett too, but I think Wilson is, I think Seattle was smart to get rid of him when they did. Yeah, Pete Carroll,
saw the writing on what a good coach Pete Carroll is. What he's done, what a move. Just fantastic. Got rid of Russell Wilson, made something of Geno Smith, which we're going to talk about a little later. And it's just, I don't know. But I think the problems with the Broncos is kind of, I guess you can say it's a little bit more than the head coach to me. I think there's just something systemic going on there that isn't quite right with the front office too. And then I was talking to Mike LaPlante on our Slack chat that we're kind of thinking this might have something to do with. I think there's a little bit of Elway in here that is. It might be time for him to move on as VP of the Broncos because he has a lot of say in player personnel and stuff.
Agreed. Yeah, he has not made very, very many good decisions with their draft picks nor coach hiring their franchise. I think he should, hang up the executive decision making to someone else.
Yeah,
he's not. Yeah, I know he's of course well thought of in Denver, but
I know he's not. I know technically he's not director of player personnel, but he is kind of acting as, he was the one responsible for getting Manning in there. And actually, I think Manning winning that Super Bowl, it kind of solidified his place there. And look at what Elway's had. They had Tebow there, right?
Right.
And, I don't think apart from the Manning acquisition. Manning had a great season and he ended his career with a Super Bowl. Kind of like, that's kind of well done and everything. But, but I kind of question about whether the Broncos are going to be any better next year, whatever coach they get.
Yeah, they got a nice rebuilding have to happen there. They have to throw it out and start over again.
Especially with it's a long list of what they did to get Russell Wilson,
Right. Draft picks and players. They gutted it to get Russell, and he's not produced whatsoever. He's, you see that, players complaining to each other on the sidelines and getting into fights and stuff about Russell. That team's in disarray right now.
Injury.
Lamar Jackson, status for Week 17 remains unknown. I have a feeling they'll play. The importance of these games is starting to. It calls for Lamar Jackson to get in there. And, they're doing okay with Tyler Huntley, but I think they could be a lot better with Lamar.
Right. And you see that they NFL flexed their matchup with the Steelers Sunday night, which kind of makes no sense. Really, there's playoff implications for obviously Baltimore, but Steelers are more or less out of it. So I'm not sure why they did that, but I guess they're hoping Lamar comes back, bring a little shine to the matchup itself.
Well, it's not, and people talk about like the final week of the season as being, but it is kind of important to have a win going into the playoffs.
Yeah,
some
the
teams,
momentum is important.
Yeah, some teams are starting to, some teams are starting to place a lot more importance on that. So,
they should.
Yeah, they should.
Injury.
Tyler Lockett, he might only miss one game after the broken finger. Kind of a surprise, but he'll be needed in fantasy. But missing only one game means he misses Week 17, and Week 17 is your championship final, which it doesn't really help anyone.
Right. Yeah, he's been part of that Seahawks offense along with Geno Smith that's been very successful for fantasy managers this season. And Lockett's playing on him. He's actually, where you got him drafted at compared to where Metcalf got picked. He's been a better value for fantasy managers this year.
We got another, I don't know. I think that might be from last week, a Lamar Jackson thing. But, Taylor Heinicke, I must have had a couple of things in there. Anyways, moving right along, Taylor Heinicke, looks like Carson Wentz, is possibly going to take over, but they haven't, there's no commitment by Rivera of whether Heinicke will start.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised they made that move. Heinicke he's not a stud at quarterback, but he's a good game manager that helping the team win, and they've been winning. And I think, getting Wentz out there, it's kind of shocked me because we know what Wentz is. He's very sporadic at best. So putting him out there makes me worried about where Rivera's head's at. If he's getting a little nervous about his position with them. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the playoffs seem to be the thing that's foremost on the mind. They want to get into the playoffs, and another loss on the weekend didn't help them. So it's going to be, it's a tough decision really for him, but it doesn't look like Taylor Heinicke has much of a future apart from being a backup in this league now. So he can't argue the fact that Heinicke can't argue that he didn't get his shot. He got the full shot this year.
Yeah, very true.
So, and that's kind of like Zach Wilson. He can't argue that he's got a shot. He's benched permanently. He won't even be active in Week 17. Joe Flacco's going to be the backup.
Right. Yeah, it was he looked pretty horrible. The Boo Boys were definitely out, in that game with the way he was playing, and it was pretty embarrassing to watch him in that offense. The way they were, you could tell they were so frustrated with his throwing or his lack of throws that he was trying to put out there.
They even had a fourth stringer look better than him,
I know. Yeah, they're happy to have your next line about Mike White coming back, which is very important for that offense. Their offense was clicking with Mike White back there, but Zach Wilson puts it to a halt.
Yeah, I don't know what his future is going to be. It doesn't look good. I don't think anybody's talking about next year with Zach Wilson. For future's looking pretty bleak. I don't even know if he can be a backup. Dennis.
Right, I agree. Well, he lost that team. We talked about that when after it happened. He lost that locker room, so now it's. He's not going to be doing that in New York. He has to do that somewhere else. He's have to lead a team, and the draft capital they invested in him. It's going to be hard to swallow that for the Jets. But I think he needs to move on. Maybe he finds success somewhere else. But it won't be in New York, I think.
No. I mean, you just look at all these quarterbacks that New York have had, and they just cannot get a good quarterback. Just, who they had, like you got Darnold. Well, Geno Smith's done okay this year, but I mean, and then there's Mark Sanchez. The list goes on of quarterbacks over the past 10 years and not a one can just take the reins and be I mean, they're looking for that Namath,
Right.
But I never really thought Namath was that good. I mean, I can remember as a kid Namath, and I never thought he was that great.
No, he was more of a one of those goody guys that he was a good leader, but as a quarterback, he wasn't that.
No,
he wasn't fantastic, But I mean, he was always going to be known for the Super Bowl, and then beyond that, you really don't hear about what he did after that because it really doesn't matter, I guess, to the NFL world. But he did have some good years with the Rams, but other than that, he was not a stud quarterback, that's for sure.
No, not that great. But that Super Bowl win did. I mean, it changed the league. I mean, it merged the league actually.
Right. It was a game. It was a football changing event, but. Yeah. And guaranteeing the win and how that came with that, it was obviously huge in the history of the league. But it's something that's he's known for that more than he's ever been known as a quarterback.
Injury.
Leonard Fournette tweets, then deletes. He's playing through a Lisfranc injury. Now, apparently, I found out that Lisfranc injuries are weird. Now, how do you play through a Lisfranc? That's your foot. You can't. I mean, basically, if it was any kind of serious Lisfranc injury, you can't barely stand, let alone run. How does he play through a Lisfranc injury? A Lisfranc injury, basically, it's. And also, I think the reason he had to delete it was it's against league rules it's supposed to be the team that talks about injuries or something like that, to that effect.
Yeah, releases the injury information. Yeah, they're not supposed to. Individual players are not supposed to announce their own injuries. So, it was kind of weird. I saw that, and, I saw the whole story behind it. I'm like, holy crap, what's going on with that, And you can see now you know why Fournette's been kind of on and off with his production. And they've been throwing, last night they threw him a lot of passes, but he was plodding through the field, but he was not explosively. He's been
fairly effective, but you know what? He's turning into he's turning into a big bowling ball now. He doesn't seem to be, he's not a juker, is what I'm.
No. Well, you see though, when he did make that one tackle miss, even Collinsworth said something about, I'm glad he made someone miss, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it was, like he was almost like startled that he made someone miss on a tackler. I'm like, holy crap, that's pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, it's, like you said, he's just a plotter, and it's, he's going to give what the defense gives him, and that's it. Which, that's what it is with that. But they gave the ball a little bit more. He should have given the ball a little more to Rashid White, because he's the guy that can make some plays. Fournette's more of a, short yardage kind of guy, but they were throwing in the ball like crazy, which I don't understand why. But it was more for pass protection for Brady. But
yeah, he's good. He's a good pass protector because he's big.
Right.
Rashad White didn't do much either. No. So I don't know. The Buccaneers again. They kind of, to me, they lucked out with another win against the Cardinals. Yeah, I mean, how many wins have they? Well, they've had Brady's come back to win in the last second, like two that I can think of course, that were sort of famous this year of come from behind wins at the last minute.
Right. But it's like everything fell their way to make that happen, against the Saints and last night too. Which, it's kind of weird how that always happens to Brady all the time. He makes it happen. So, a lot of the ball bounces his way, but when he does get the ball, he does do something with it. So you gotta give him credit for that.
Yeah, of course. If only other teams could have that kind of luck.
Yeah, right.
There was one game in particular on the weekend that it didn't. It was the Pittsburgh game. The big Franco Harris thing.
Yeah.
And they're playing the Raiders. It seemed like the Raiders were kind of like, it's one of those things you kind of just know that the Steelers are going to win because and the Raiders are just playing like the Washington Generals.
Right.
They're sort of like, that's their role in the game. Like, it's just Franco Harris was so huge and his loss right in the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, it's just like,
right.
I was thinking, there's no way the Raiders are going to win this.
Right.
Well, they nearly did.
You could bet the house on that one almost, right?
Yeah, well, I was, and the thing was too, I was almost thinking the Raiders they're not going to get good calls. All the calls are going to go favor Pittsburgh from the referees, things like that. I know that would make it seem like it was fixed, but and there were some calls in that game which I kind of thought the Raiders kind of got, they were kind of looking for I'm not saying that the referees are trying to give the game to that would be absolutely wrong to say.
Right. But you're not saying it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was even bad on my part for even.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I 100% agree with you. It seemed almost a given that the Steelers could pull out the. It would have to be something outrageous for the Raiders to win that.
Yeah, but just to say that I do want to mention that. Because this all happened after our podcast last week about Franco Harrison. I've seen him in interviews, and they've got his football life going. It's repeating over and over on. You can watch it on NFL Network, and he's a cool guy. Actually, he was a cool guy.
Right. Yeah, he's a good leader and good football player, and one of the most famous plays in NFL history, the Immaculate Reception. And you hear all the stories about Franco, from fellow players about how great of a guy he is, and he was always willing to listen to fellow players and talk to the fans and stuff. I mean, he's 100% props, and rest in peace, Franco.
Yeah, indeed, rest in peace.
Injury.
Derrick Henry. This just came up as I was starting to set up the podcast actually for this week, and Derrick Henry hip injuries, and I was questionable, leaning doubtful with a hip injury. So not good, not at the right time, not on championship week. You don't want this.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't bode well for fantasy managers, but I think the Titans are going to be smart with this one because, next week they have a matchup with the Jaguars, which is basically for the division.
Right.
They're not going to risk Henry this week, regardless of what's going on. Because, it doesn't matter what happens this week. It matters what happens next week in their matchup. So
that's right.
They're going to save him for that. And obviously it's going to hurt all fantasy managers, and the guys, Henry leading you to the championship, but you're not going to have him to play in the championship game, which was really that's really demoralizing for your fantasy. There's so many guys this year that's been.
I think Hilliard's hurt too. Is that right?
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, he's out.
Who's the next? Haskins? Is it?
Yeah, Haskins and
can't think of that
person. Yeah, there's another player too that Haskins.
Yeah, Haskins is the main one. But I don't know if Hilliard is ready. But if Hilliard's ready, obviously you get him. Otherwise, your opponent will get him.
Exactly. Oh yeah, definitely.
If Henry is in your final, oh man, it's so devastating. You got your final coming up, and it's all this.
Right.
Well, we have a special guest.
Right. Yeah. So before we get into our
yeah, go ahead. Hello.
I want to introduce you to my number one fan, my granddaughter, Briella. Say hello, Briella.
Oh, say hello, Briella, to us.
Sure.
Hello, Briella. Did you have a nice Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Lots of fun. You got lots of toys and lots of chocolate.
Yep.
Yeah, Santa good to you?
Yeah, but because he gave us so much candy, he ought to give us each a new toothbrush and toothpaste.
Well, that's kind of important, too. Well, listen, Briella, do you have any fantasy advice for championship week? Do you know any players what's your favorite player for fantasy this week? Do you have a favorite player?
Grandpa.
Yeah. Listen to what I tell him? Yeah. You want me to listen to what I tell him? Yeah. Okay. Just whatever I tell him to go. That's what you should do.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. I was just wondering how much do you watch football at all, Briella? Do you watch some football sometimes?
Not really, but I am a cheerleader.
Oh.
So I watch the boys sometimes.
Right. Oh, and they play football too? They
play football.
Do you like the Cleveland Browns?
No, my dad's more of a Steelers fan. And so is the family.
I'm a little Browns fan in the family.
Well, I'd like to have Christmas over there. It must be quite interesting when football becomes the discussion.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a lot of yelling going on. A lot of trash talk.
football on the weekends. Always.
Well, I want to thank you, Briella, for coming on our show. I was very, very glad that you could come on and share a little bit of Christmas cheer, and I hope you have a happy New Year in 2023.
Thank you, and I'm so happy that I came on today.
Yeah, so are we.
Thanks, Brianna. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Bye-bye. Well, back to the show. Oh, that was a lot of fun. That was very cute. Too cute.
She wanted to come on and talk. Like one day we were playing around with YouTube on something, and I'm like, I want you to listen to something, and I put one of our podcasts, and she's like, wow, Grandpa, that's you. So we started talking about that, and she's like, I want to be on there. So that's what made it. So I wanted to make sure she had a chance to be on there.
Well, that was really cool. Right.
Was,
on with the show. We also have Davis Peng coming up somewhere in the middle of this mess that we have of stuff that this is important stuff, Dennis.
Yes, it is.
Not as important as Briella's part, but just as important. But but it's still important nonetheless, right? We got to talk about a season in review. We're going to ask some questions of ourselves of what we think. We'll get to as many as we can. No particular order, I don't think. But I'll start with the one at the top, who are fantasy comeback player or players. We don't, it's not just necessarily one. One of us might have one of us might have two, both of us might have two, just kind of just a little bit random. And next week we're going to try and get Davis on so that we can have our very, very early top 12 first round draft picks of fantasy. Very early, like if the season was to start all over again next week. But we'll try to project it for next year. We'll do our best, but we're not, we're not Kreskin.
Kreskin.
All right, okay. So anyway, who is your fantasy comeback players of the year? Well, I can see on the board that we both chose Geno Smith. No question about Geno Smith, and we were alluding to this in the with Russell Wilson going to the Broncos, and Geno Smith has outplayed him, Dennis.
Yeah, definitely. He's been such a find for fantasy managers, and of course Seattle. I mean, they're reveling in the fact that Geno is succeeding and Russell's imploding in Denver right now. So it is something that fantasy managers, you always, Geno's used to be a punchline for fantasy managers, picking him and having him on your team, but now he's someone that's that's someone you want to have.
Yeah, and you also put a player in the optional too for this. Right,
CMC.
Yep, Christian McCaffrey.
With him, having all those injuries. Those injuries the last couple of years, you wonder, what he's going to come into, and he's actually showed that he's he's healthy and he's produced. With that trade to San Fran, he was you had to worry about what his role would be, but he's actually succeeded there too. So I think obviously he's not going to be up to Geno Smith's level, but he's worth someone that should be considered at least as a comeback player, because everyone frowned upon him with all his injuries that he had last couple of seasons, and you wonder what's going to do, what draft pick he was going to have this year, and when you're taking a risk with him in the beginning of the first round and end of the first round. I think he's overwhelmingly made people think that he's someone you want to take in the top half of the first round for next year.
Yeah, and I guess that'll lead into, I'll continue on for the next question, which in-season trades has the most effect. And obviously, we both selected Christian McCaffrey for that answer as well. And just to add on to what you say, with all the trade activities, his trade was by far, the biggest trade of anyone. I mean, there were some, I guess there were some big trades, but none come to mind as quickly as Christian McCaffrey. It's changed San Francisco. I mean, they are determined contenders. They're not sitting. They're always a win now team, and Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco, they could easily take, I consider them actually, I think they're a better team, and I'm not, and even with Jalen Hurts as Philadelphia quarterback, I think San Francisco can beat them.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, especially if Debo comes back healthy. I think they're holding out Debo now with his injury. I think, if he comes back healthy, I think they got a good shot to win it now. I mean, plus you get worried. You believe that Jimmy G's going to come back as well. So with those guys in there, I think they have an excellent chance to win. That defense is outstanding. I mean, they're just shutting down people left and right. So, that offense, as long as Debo comes back and Jimmy, even with Purdy there, he was playing well. But
Purdy looks
back healthy.
Purdy,
he looks fantastic.
He looks too good. So now we're kind of wondering now about, and this is kind of like for next season, and we're kind of it's something that we're going to be talking about in a further question down the road, I do believe. We'll leave that for now, but we'll come back to that. Which injuries had the most notable fantasy impact? Dennis, I'll let you take the question first, and then I'll do it.
Okay. It may seem logical, and I thought about this one a little bit for Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was, top receiver stuff, but in that Rams offense, which they were going downhill, very quickly, with the injuries they had, and offensive line was in shambles. I actually went with Lamar Jackson first because Lamar, I think, got injured in week 13.
Yeah.
And he was, one of the top quarterbacks. Him and Mark Andrews had a nice ring, and then Andrews got hurt. But Lamar was having a great season, and then he got hurt. And, their playoff hopes are, they're still there, but they're kind of, you're not going to worry about them if Lamar Jackson's not.
They're limping into the playoffs, yeah.
Right, exactly.
And that's not good, but I think Lamar Jackson is definitely a big for the team, and not only in but for fantasy as well. Lamar Jackson, you lost him. He's been playing banged up. He hasn't been himself this year. And you haven't gotten the production. It's sort of like it's kind of gone over to Justin Fields. Really, we'll be talking about a lot of players we mentioned. We will be talking further as we go down the list. But and you mentioned Cooper Kupp. Yeah, definitely huge loss in Week 10. He's the guy that actually got you a good fantasy record, and then, for the last 4 seasons, if you managed to get through, you're getting through to the fantasy playoffs or to your final. And if you did it without Cooper Kupp, congrats on the rest of your bench,
right,
and your waiver pickups, which you've always got to do. But Cooper Kupp, he'll be back next year, so he should be doing better.
In that one league that we're in together, I had Kupp and Lamar Jackson in that league, and that kind of sucked any chance I had, and Mark Andrews too, actually. So that kind of sunk my team beyond belief. I mean, there's a roller coaster ride downhill from after Cooper Kupp got hurt, and Lamar got hurt. Then Andrews was, not just starting to come back, and that was beginning of the end for my playoff chance.
I also mentioned, goes back to San Francisco again. Elijah Mitchell, Week 1 MCL. Now this was an impactful, not so much in fantasy, yes, but it kind of goes back to the trade. Had Elijah Mitchell not gotten hurt in Week 1, would San Francisco have traded to get Christian McCaffrey? I think that was crucial. I think it was a crucial injury in Week 1 because Elijah Mitchell was out for 2 months.
Right. And they didn't want to get the chance of, you never knew what he was going to come back to when he did come back. So, McCaffrey was available. They jumped all over. They didn't give up anything for him, really. You know what I mean? For what to get a player of that caliber, they didn't give up much. So that was a very impactful injury. That led to CMC being acquired by the 49ers.
Yeah, that was a crucial thing. Without that injury, I very much doubt Christian McCaffrey would be a 49er.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, okay, here we get into the nitty gritty. Which players do you feel you were right about before the season? Who goes first, me or you? I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
Because you went first the last one. So I'll
fair enough.
I think I was right about Justin Fields. It took a while. He wasn't very good.
Right.
He wasn't very good in September and early October. It took a while for Justin Fields to suddenly become use those legs, and there's still problems with Fields. There is an offensive problem still with they're not getting the only passing projects they've got is I mean, we can still talk about Darnell Mooney, but I think it's only Cole Kmet that's really their only receiver, pass catcher really that they've got. But Justin Fields, he came along. I mean, I was right in the end, but I was wrong in the beginning about Justin Fields.
Right.
I mean, I put all my eggs in the basket, like at the beginning of the season, and I sure looked bad at the beginning, but then I looked good.
Yeah.
About Justin Fields.
Right.
And but you also agree about Justin Fields as well. You also have him on in our list of one or two players that
Right. Yeah, I was a little nervous at the beginning of the year because, like you said, their offense was looking pretty shabby. And, their offensive play calling was really horrendous. And they finally let Justin Fields run. And that would obviously led to his, blow up in fantasy for us. I mean, now he's a top 5 fantasy quarterback. He doesn't have the weapons that you want. I mean, Mooney was pretty, absent for most of the year. He really didn't do much. And Cole Kmet was successful for a tight end. They grabbed Chase Claypool in a trade, but he didn't really do much.
No.
I mean, he was basically doing everything by himself, but he was winning weeks for fantasy managers based on his running. I mean, he was phenomenal running, and that's what I noticed a lot of people noticed, but that's what I was banking on, based on his time in Iowa State. Being a Buckeye fan, I seen that every week, so I was banking on him being able to express those talents every week, and they finally let him do it, and then he just blew up. Now he's, except for last week when he, had a terrible week. Of course, I mentioned my playoff week, of course, but regardless of that, he still is, top 5 fantasy quarterback and someone that everyone's going to be drafted high next year.
Right. Yep. And you mentioned Chase Claypool, who came in and didn't do anything. That kind of surprised me, but in a way it didn't, because the Steelers let go of Chase Claypool. So I wouldn't say easily, but is Chase Claypool is not as good as we thought?
Yeah, probably not. He had a great rookie season, and he's been non-existent since then. I mean,
you think
it's pretty bad.
Bounce back possibilities?
I would hope so. I would hope that the Fields will be able to do something with him. With Moody on the other side and Kmet, improving. And I think they're going to do something in the draft as well. Or even free agency. They got tons of money. I mean, Bears have like the most free agent money to spend. So they're going to go nuts with getting money. And there's free agents out there that will definitely be able to help Fields get better. And I'm not sure where that leaves Claypool exactly, but I don't think it's someone that you would be looking to target in your fantasy drafts next year.
Who's you got another player that you were right about this season that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. His rookie season, he had the unfortunate surprise of Urban Meyer trying to be an NFL coach, which obviously, he fell flat on his face on, and that hurt the franchise more than we'll probably know. But, now this season with Doug Peterson leading the team, that team's been to a 180, and Trevor Lawrence has been phenomenal. He's looked like what he looked like in college. He's running the ball. He's throwing all over the field. He's has some weapons now. The Jaguars spent a lot of money on free agents, giving him weapons, and he's been succeeding. And I thought Lawrence was, very handcuffed with Urban Meyer as the coach in the way he was trying to run that offense and run that team. And I think if he had someone experienced that can, turn him around, that he'd be successful. And thankfully I was right, because I banked on him a couple of my leagues, and he's done very well, especially the second half of the year, and he's leading the team to hopefully a playoff berth this year. Just gonna take a look at his stats here just to see, because I feel he didn't do so good. He was kind of like Fields in this way. Didn't start off like a house on fire, but he's definitely come into his own. I have him currently as rest of season QB3, and his early season, he had his first 5 games he finished in the top 10 once. Next 5 games he finished in the top 10 3 times. And now he's finished in the top 5 in his last 5 games. So you can see the progression of growth here. There's definitely growth going on with Trevor Lawrence. So you're absolutely right. How many 300-yard games? 1, 2, 3, 4. And his last 5 games,
is where he has 300-yard games. Previous to that, he just had one for the bye week. So after the bye week, Trevor Lawrence, he's doing good. He's got a 5.16, 5.10. Definitely good quarterback on hand. My other guy that I think I was right about was Tony Pollard. I believe before the season I thought Pollard is going to be more of the 1A than the 1B in the Dallas offense, and I think I'm right about that. I guess it's arguable, but I think I'm still right about Tony Pollard. I don't know how you think about that, but I. if you were high, I was high on Tony Pollard and he didn't disappoint. I mean, I guess you could almost say he's the 1A. Is he the 1A or is he the 1B, Dennis?
No, I think he's the 1A. I mean, especially at the beginning of the year, he was definitely the 1A. It looks like Zeke either had a fountain of youth or something coming up in the last couple of weeks because he's looked a lot better since their bye week. But, I think Tony Pollard is, I think he's a stud. I mean, he is so explosive with the ball. I mean, he's a top 10 running back going into next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott's not there next year. And I think they even count Pollard even more. So I think I love that pick. I think I worried about that because they share the ball so much. And I thought they would do that a lot more this year, but Pollard had the ball. Was getting a lot more touches beginning of the year, and then Elliott started catching up a little bit lately.
I couldn't understand it when Tony Pollard was so low on the draft boards.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why.
And Zeke was way ahead of him on the draft boards when the season started. I can't. What?
Right.
But
the only way that would be is if maybe in a standard league I could see maybe doing that. But in PPR leagues, there's no way that Pollard shouldn't be ahead of Elliott by a significant margin.
Yeah, might even be in the first round. We shall see.
Yeah.
Stay
tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Well, early second for sure. Now for the other side. Which players were we wrong about? That's my turn to start first, I guess. Okay. I was wrong about Darnell Mooney, and he got hurt at the end of the season, just a couple of games ago. Now, this kind of conjuncts with Justin Fields, and I kind of expected Justin Fields to have his breakout season a lot earlier. With Darnell Mooney, I think he finally scored a touchdown. I think he's got one touchdown on the season. I think he finally did get one, but I'm not sure. But anyways, it's a massive regression. Now, what do I say about Darnell Mooney coming into 2023? It's a big. I don't know. I think he can bounce back. He's a good, talented receiver. There's no doubt about it. But I'm kind of wondering about this Bears offense. It's not good yet. It's not good enough to support. Like Darnell Mooney, should have had. I was fully expecting a 1,000-yard season out of the guy, and I wouldn't say a big bucket of touchdowns, but a nice tidy sized bucket of touchdowns, like 6, 7. But didn't turn out. And so he's my, he caught me by surprise, that way.
He was one of my sleeper picks going into this year, and he definitely disappointed. He did not, he did maybe 1 or 2 games that he did something of fantasy relevance that helped your team, but otherwise he was a black hole in your fantasy lineup every week.
Who you got?
So the one point that I was wrong about was Josh Jacobs. Now I picked Jacobs to be a bust going into this year, believing the whole drama along with the contract situation that the Raiders weren't going to extend his contract, so they were going to kind of let him be. And they had all these running backs in their stable, and Josh McDaniel uses a bunch of running backs and blah blah blah. And it didn't happen. Josh Jacobs has been a stud. He's been going into this week. I think he was the number 1 running back in fantasy, and he had 11 touchdowns, 1,500 yards rushing, 46 catches, and I was 100% wrong on him. I stayed away from him in my drafts thinking he was going to be a bust, and he proved me 100% wrong.
Yeah, he didn't have a good game against Pittsburgh, but right, as if Josh Jacobs was going to have a big game
Right.
There was no way Pittsburgh were going to key on the run. There was no way they were going to let Josh Jacobs. No chance in hell that they were going to let Josh Jacobs have a big game on the Franco Harris tribute day game. There's just no way. So he ended up as RB35, 15 carries, 44 yards. So kind of understandable. But the previous week he still ended up as RB20. But the yardage was there against New England. 22 carries, 93 yards. But before that, I mean, he's had RB finishes of. I'm gonna switch to half PPR here. So the previous 6 games, RB8, RB7, RB1, RB3, RB8, and then of course these last 2 games he's sort of fallen off a little bit. But I mean, still, up until the Pittsburgh game, he had double digit fantasy points in half PPR for you. So, I mean, he's got a tough matchup against Pittsburgh next week. So we'll see how that goes. But I think I was sort of wrong on Josh Jacobs too. So, yeah. Another Raider I was wrong about. And you always like you pointed this out too much during the season just to annoy me.
Nice.
But I'm unflappable because I know that I goof up. But Adams has fallen off has fallen off a bit in recent weeks. He had I'll go to half PPR here. WR1 in week 13, but since then Adams has dropped off significantly. On WR38, WR57, and of course the Pittsburgh game in the cold. Targeted 9 times, only caught 2 balls.
Right.
Well, so he had turkey for Christmas.
Yeah. He played good, but you said he's faltered down the stretch, and he hurt me in one of my leagues that I was counting him to do something. Especially, that Steelers defense has been kind of bad against the pass, so I figured Adams would do something there, and he didn't do crap. So
not on Franco Harris Day.
Yeah, that's true.
I would be honest. Those are the intangibles you see in fantasy. You've got to take these intangibles into account. Something like that with, they're retiring Franco Harris's number. It's the immaculate reception, and the atmosphere was totally against the Raiders, even though they led most of the game. Right. Hard to believe.
And one player that I didn't put on here, but I wanted to mention because I was wrong about this receiver was Amon-Ra St. Brown. All right. I thought he was not going to be successful this year because first Jared Goff is there. Secondly, when Hawkinson and Swift were injured, St. Brown blew up. I thought with both those guys back that he would not succeed, and I was 100% wrong. I had arguments with my friends about this, and they kept trying to convince me how great or how successful St. Brown was going to be, and I kept telling them, what you're talking about. So obviously, in this case, I had no idea what I'm talking about because St. Brown was a stud, and he was a top 5-10 receiver. This year, and he's been highly successful, and he's become Goff's go-to guy, and Goff actually surprised me as well. And the whole Lions team has been a surprise this year. But
Lions are better. The Lions are better. The Lions are just going to get better too.
Right, agreed.
Just to point out Amon-Ra St. Brown's stats.
Rub it in, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm not going to rub it in. I'm not going to rub it in because he's like Devontae Adams over fantasy point wise. He said, he had those 2 blow-up games in week 12 and week 13. He had a blow-up game against Buffalo. He caught 122 yards against Buffalo. Hard to believe. And 29, that translated to 23 half PPR fantasy points. And against Jacksonville, 29. But then he had 10, 12, and 11 over the last 3 weeks. It's okay, but, for half PPR. But, he's still getting the yardage, 68 yards, 76 yards, two weeks in a row there. But he's had 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm surprised you. I was actually high on say Ross St. Brown.
Yeah, I didn't think he was gonna. Like I said earlier, I thought with Hawkinson healthy, obviously before he got traded, and Swift coming back healthy, that he wouldn't get many looks, and I thought I was basing on that. But obviously Hawkinson gets traded. DeAndre Swift was a bust. He didn't, much as we keep waiting for him to explode, he gets 1 or 2 games and then he doesn't have crap since. So he's He's nothing now that's fantasy viable for you. And St. Brown's been, he's already succeeded last year's stats. So, he's a stud, and I was 100% wrong on him.
Yeah. I have him as rest of season WR5. I think it's just, and he's actually ahead of Adams, somehow. I work out these rankings scientifically, so.
I bet you do.
Half scientifically, there's some subjectivity that goes into it, but generally I go by your most recent, production, the last 4 weeks is the last 4 weeks is what gets more weight. You know what I mean?
Right. Makes sense.
So, right. So, these are, I guess, we got, I think before we get into, which players caught us by surprise for better or worse, we'll check out what Peng's Picks has for this week with Davis Peng. Here we go.
Peng's Picks with Davis Peng.
Hey everybody, this is Davis Peng, writer for Fantasy Six Pack, and this is my Peng's Picks take for Week 17. Finals, baby! First things first, shout out to the teams that didn't make it past Week 16. Teams that probably had Josh Jacobs, teams that probably had Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Ramondre Stevenson. You can't predict these goose egg situations. You cannot predict bad weeks. You know what though? It happens. You did everything you could. You got to the semifinals, and if things could be a different week, you might be in finals. Who guessed that Stephon Diggs would have a very bad game against the secondary of the Bears? So, with that being said, you probably have other teams that are going to the finals, so don't worry about that. Worry about the current weeks you're facing, and we hope us at Fantasy Six Pack can get you there. And other than that, let's move on to the starting thing. Congratulations to your Week 17 teams. If you made it this far, that means your roster is probably strong enough, or maybe a little bit lucky. Hey, I've seen it go both ways. But that being said, you have a shot. You have a shot to be a champion. So what do? Well, look at your matchups. Look at your studs if they've been studs the last few weeks. And look at the waivers. There are some players that are in the 70% range owned that could still be on your waivers right now. I have in my league a Cortland Sutton on waivers. I have a Josh Palmer on waivers. I have a Richie James, a lot of Giants on the waivers. I have a Dawson Knox on my waivers. And Dawson Knox has had 3 touchdowns straight these past 3 weeks. Josh Allen's finally spreading that ball a little bit more. He's not trusting Gabriel Davis as much. And they have a shootout sensation with the Bengals and the Bills. So maybe look for someone like Dawson Knox. Who knows? But that being said, I would start really focusing on these possible one-offs that are on your waivers and not take their first half of the season as what they're doing now. I know we have this ingrainedness with us that we go, wow, that guy has sucked for us for most of the year. That's why he's on the waiver. But you would be surprised who are popping up. Russell Gage even is a guy that has slowly popped up the last few weeks. Shared split snaps with Julio Jones, but when he came in there, he was a check down guy, and he kind of showed up. He showed up more recently more than Mike Evans, so showed up more than DeAndre Hopkins, so look at it that way. I would say start really looking at your waiver. And then matchups I'm looking forward to, obviously, check the weather, but I want all the matchups right now are Giants and Indy. I want Richie James, I want Isaiah Hodgins, I want Darius Slayton. Any of these guys can really get it for you, and they've been pretty hot the last few weeks, and none of these guys are necessarily owned besides, Darius Slayton. So maybe you can find yourself Richie James, maybe yourself Isaiah Hodgins. Other than that, I wish you guys best of luck. Play what you've been doing. You got here on your own or with our help a little bit, but you made the right decision. See you next year for week 1 of 2023, and have a good one, guys. Good luck.
Thanks, Davis. Well, do you remember when Dennis, when Davis was down on Giants receivers? I remember listening to a Peng's Picks when he was, let's face it, that I think at the time we can forgive him because at the time, we were well in agreement that the Giants, there was nothing there. So, I can agree with him there. Dawson Knox, it kind of surprised me that, Dawson Knox, I didn't have my pen ready, so I wasn't taking notes when Davis was talking, so I'm kind of going by memory here. So I didn't click on my pen. I had it at hand. I thought, I can't find the pen. I'll just listen to it, but try to remember things. So I'm kind of going by memory of the things that he was talking about. But Dawson Knox.
A lot of, Dawson Knox has been very a very good, tight end for the last couple of weeks, and he needed with the way the tight ends are. Davis was talking about a bunch of players that killed your fantasy dreams. This week, like Jacobs and Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. I mean that. And I always tell people, to get into the playoffs, fantasy playoffs takes a lot of skill. When you get into the playoffs, it's a lot of it's about luck. It's not skill, because you got 2 weeks to play. And anything can happen in 2 weeks. And you play your studs, and some are going to succeed, and some like Diggs and Ramondre Stevenson, Jacobs, Adams, and those guys don't do anything. And then that just kills your hopes to win a title. Nothing you could do about it. But you played who you played, and you won with the team that got you there. That's all you could do.
Yeah, and I remember my first fantasy final at F6P. I remember it quite well. I had Aaron Rodgers, and he was going to play the Bears. And I looked at this was a few days before the game, and I knew that the forecast for Chicago, it was in Chicago, was going to be cold. This was going to be a cold one. This was like in the minuses. I thought, shit, I'm going to start Aaron Rodgers, the guy that got me because at that time, Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers, the Aaron Rodgers, the classic Aaron Rodgers. And, so I think it's 2015, something like that. So anyways, I remember saying to Joe Bond, well, I'm going to sit Aaron Rodgers. He thought, that's crazy. Are you crazy? And I just look at the weather there. And so I thought, well, Carson Palmer was on the waiver wire. I decided to pick up, because I thought, Carson Palmer, look where he's playing. His game is in Arizona. It's going to be warm. Apparently it's going to be nice and toasty. For Carson Palmer, because he was playing Arizona. He was playing for the Cardinals at that time. He wasn't the Bengals. He was with the Cardinals at that time. So comes out, it turned out that Rodgers did terrible, Carson Palmer did great, and it was the difference in my fantasy final when I won the championship.
No kid. That's awesome. I don't know if I would have the guts to do that or not. But.
Yeah, well, I did. Sometimes you got to make those tough choices to win.
Yeah.
Right. But he was right to mention the cold and all that. You gotta look at cold. Sometimes you're gonna make those hard decisions, man. In your fantasy final, it's on the line. You've got to make it's all about gut. If your gut tells you to sit a guy, you should if you sat, my gut would be really stretching it. Oh shit, Josh Jacobs playing in Pittsburgh with all this stuff going on about Franco Harris in the cold too. Yeah, add the equation, man.
Mm. Yeah, would you actually sit him against the Steelers? That'd be hard.
I would be considering it, just like I did with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do. I don't know if I would. Yeah, I mean, it depends who else you have, but it'd have to be like some big studs for me to sit Jacobs on that in that respect. Mm. But I don't know. I mean, it would have worked out this time if you would have sat him.
Got me through. Okay, so I guess enough about Carson Palmer. Which players caught you by? Yeah, Carson Palmer, classic quarterback. I'll never forget him because of that. Won me a championship.
I bet.
Which players caught you by surprise, for better or worse, in the quarterback department? I guess we've got some choices here. I think for me, Trevor Lawrence, which you talked about, and Geno Smith, we've already talked about them. But what about you? You got players that we've talked about already too.
Yeah, Russell Wilson. I mean, you never know when a player goes to a new team what they're gonna do, how to succeed, and his epic failure this season is something I never would have thought would have happened. I mean, he had some weapons there. He had Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Good running backs at the time, at the beginning of the year.
I think
that he would be able to do something. Yeah, I had hopes too. And I don't know what happened to him, but he regressed so bad that, the whole team's against him now. And he's someone that I was very shocked about his lack of success there.
When I say hopes, I don't mean high hopes. I mean medium hopes. Thought he'd be better than he was. Bounce back. Gotta ask it.
I don't know. How do you trust it, though? I don't know if I could trust him. It'd be really hard to trust him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's
if he does bounce back, he's gonna be a waiver grab. Obviously, he's definitely, if he bounces back, it'll be a waiver grab. No one's gonna draft him.
Yeah, maybe in a super flex as a third quarterback, maybe, because you take the shot in the dark that he produces, and if he does, you gotta maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I'm trying to be the optimist in this one. I mean, where would I draft him?
I don't mind you being. We can move on. Which players caught you by surprise for whether better or worst? None of these guys we talked about. Ken Makers is a bit of a surprise. I know he had a big monster game somehow. Right. So he had a monster game against the Broncos, which was completely out of the blue. But Cam Akers, I think it kind of surprised me right from day one that I remember in week 1, everybody on Twitter was saying, "Where's Cam Akers? Where's Cam Akers?" Well, he's gone. But I don't think our future for Cam Akers is still... He's a nervy pick. He's going to be a late round pick still. Even, this monster game does nothing for him, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I mean, he did score like 3 out of the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, I think he did it against a Denver team that obviously had just given up on the season. Hence,
that's right,
being fired. But, Akers has looked better of late. But, he was one of the guys I picked that was going to be a bust this year because I didn't think he looked that great at the end of last year, even though he played and he was in the Super Bowl. And, I mean, his stats kind of bore out that he wasn't producing that well. He was just a back, but he wasn't, explosive at all. And, he turned in this season. He didn't look great beginning of the year. I think the last couple of weeks has actually shown, some of what we expect from Makers. But going into next year, I'm not sure where you would, place him. I mean, if you go maybe, wide receiver heavy in the beginning of the draft and you pick him as your second court running back, maybe I could see that maybe, but that's probably where the highest I would probably go after him. Because I'm not sure what the Rams offense is going to look like next year. Because, I'm not even sure. I mean, heard the stories about Sean McVay may step down now as well. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there next year.
Yeah, I don't know. Baker looked okay. And
yeah, he did. He looked all right.
So, 2 touchdown passes, 200-odd yards. So, I mean, normal.
Right. Well, you hope you would get all the time.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I kind of excused the Green Bay game because of the cold and that. You've got to excuse those weather games of bad weather. You kind of, and that's the problem with end of year stats when like the stat hounds. They always forget the weather and things like that. They always forget the individual problems with the games. They always just take it as a collection. Well, that's what they got, and then it just, it just goes in the meat grinder and then we're supposed to eat it, right? Right,
exactly. Yeah, it's, like you said, it's people that just look at stats only and don't look at underlying reasons behind them and then don't dive into them. There's a lot of fancy analysts and fantasy managers that do that unsuccessfully, of course, but they still do that. So my pick, surprise, was Saquon Barkley. I've always been a fan of Saquon Barkley, but, his return from injury, worry about what he's going to do or not do. And I think he's looked explosive and looks like the back that he was, when he came out of Michigan.
Yep.
And he's looked, 100% back. And he's catching the ball. He is, he looks like the all-around back, and he looks like a stud. Double-digit touchdowns, over 1,000 yards rushing. I don't think there's any qualms about him being, one of the top picks next year in your fantasy draft.
Yeah, completely agree with that one. I was taken by surprise with Barker. He's always, every year when I see his name, I think, this is a nervy pick. He doesn't seem so nervy after this season. But I still, if he gets injured again, I don't know. I'm kind of, where do I have him in the rest of the season? So, he's fallen. Saquon Barkley has fallen a bit down to RB6. So, great season though, but I have to admit, I did, like you, he did surprise me too. I never know what to expect, and tell you what I did expect more out of Najee Harris this year. Okay, he's come on in recent weeks, which is kind of helpful for fantasy. I had him at RB13. currently in the rest of the season. I mean, he's still kind of he's not an RB1, which I thought he was going to be. But he's a solid RB2. There's no question about that. He's solid RB2. But I was kind of expecting him to be, so it kind of surprised me that he kind of fell out of the top 10. And so, bit of a downer for Najee Harris, but things are looking better a little bit. But he's still RB2, I think. Even next year, I think he'll still be RB2 territory.
Yeah, he was another player that I thought would be a bust this year because, I looked at his stats from last year and what he was getting. He got a lot of volume, but he was a very efficient player. So I thought he'd be a bust this year. And I got a lot of flack from my family because, they're all Steeler fans and I'm, badgering one of their players. But I didn't think he would be very good this year. And he mostly proved it out that he was not going to be good. And he didn't produce for him. He has, 6 touchdowns. He had 1 top 10 finish, I think, of the year. Yeah. So, and, he's been injured a little bit here and there as well. And a lot of times, he doesn't look great out there, and even his backup actually looks a lot better than him. Jalen Warren looks better sometimes out there in the field. But, but I agree with you, though, in the last couple of weeks, he has looked better. But I was never high on him going into this year, and I think he's, on this one, actually proven right.
I actually, and as a side note, too, I fully expect him to score a touchdown against the Raiders, just because Pittsburgh would like to get that nameplate into the end zone. Being Franco Harris, right? So get that nameplate into the end zone. I think that's basically why they would like to have had Najee Harris score a touchdown, just to get that nameplate in the end zone for Franco.
Yeah,
it's a namesakes. You know what I mean?
Right, I got you.
But it didn't happen. It was not to be. But I'm sure it was in their mind. I bet it was.
Of course it was. Yeah, of course it was. Yeah. So my other running back that I was surprised about was Ramondre Stevenson. I picked him as a sleeper, and he's actually kind of, at least of course, last week, last couple of weeks was kind of bad, but he was turning into a good stud running back. That he was getting a lot of catches. He has 60 catches on the year. 6 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards rushing, and that's what's sharing. Began the year, he was sharing the ball with Damian Harris, but since Harris was injured, he's been the go-to guy in that Patriots backfield, and he actually succeeded what I thought he was going to be, and he's someone that I'd be, interested in picking up as like my second running back going into next year.
All right. So where are we at now? Wide receivers that surprised me this year. George Pickens surprised me. I guess in a way yes, in a way no, but it was I have Deontay Johnson too, so I'm going to mention them both at the same time. Deontay Johnson, I think he still doesn't have a touchdown. I'm going to check that.
No, he doesn't.
No, you know that for a fact.
Yeah.
All right. Deontay Johnson, still no touchdowns. And, laid a big goose egg on us this year. Kind of surprised me. I thought he'd be, new quarterback and all, but, I think he's been supplanted by George Pickens. I think if Deontay Johnson, there's no way he can find another team because he's got a long-term contract. I don't think he becomes a free agent until 2025. And so he's kind of stuck with the team unless they can, if some other team wants to trade him for the money. I don't know. I doubt it.
Right. Powerful, yeah. I agree.
So he's kind of stuck. It's either, but the Steelers are going to have to, they're going to have to get him going, or else they got this, they got this white elephant on their team. It was just, it's kind of costly because Deontay Johnson's kind of expensive now
right.
for the Steelers. I mean, he's too expensive to let go of and too expensive to keep.
Yeah, pretty much. And they got to get that for what they're going to do at quarterback, if they think Pickett's going to be the guy or not. I think that's still debatable. And like you said, they invested so much money in Deontay, which I thought was kind of a foolish contract. And Pickens has looked a lot. I mean, Pickens has like a highlight reel waiting to happen. He makes some outstanding catches, but and I think he's someone you want more in fantasy than you want Deontay. If I'm picking right now. So my surprises, actually I have 3 team, but mostly because of how much better they are than I thought they were going to be. Justin Jefferson just turned into such a stud that I knew he's good. Everyone knows he's good. I mean, that's common sense. But
did it really surprise you?
No, the way he's elevated his game to be where he's at now, the top.
Oh, right, yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's why I know he's a stud, but
yeah,
I mean he's overwhelmed. Stats. I mean, he has more receptions than anybody, more targets, more receiving yards. He doesn't score as the other guys do, and I think that's what a lot of people frown upon. But he's such a stud. I mean, he's unstoppable out there. I mean, if Cousins would not have his little head blockage when he comes to playing primetime games, I think Jefferson would even be better because Cousins, I don't know, he gets like a brain fart or something when he goes primetime, but
don't know what Jefferson, it is. Yeah,
you know what I mean. But Jefferson is such. You just throw the ball up and let him just go get it. I think he's WR1 going into next year. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's really that much of a debate. And I think that's what made me, pick him here. I mean, everyone knows, like I said, he's a stud, but he's producing such a legendary season that it's something that I didn't see coming.
Yeah, but playing at a high level right now. Yeah, he's currently he is currently WR1. Yeah, on my rest of the season, he's WR1. Yeah, might even be 1.01 in your fantasy drafts this year. Possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's something but I think that's a debate for another day because after we do the tight ends, we're going to be out of time. But we'll pick this up next week, though.
Yeah, we do our draft. We can talk about it.
Yeah, and we can get to the rest of these questions next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other guys were Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Everybody knows about Hill. I thought he was going to take a little bit of a downturn going away from Mahomes, but him and Waddle have been such a stud combination, both top 10 receivers, and Tua, even though he played very poorly against the Packers, on Sunday, he was having a great fantasy season, and those two guys are just, they seem almost unstoppable out there on the field as well, and they succeeded a lot better than I thought they would this year.
Yeah, Waddle, 143 yards against Green Bay. Whew. And it's not an easy matchup, and especially Tua didn't have that great of a day either for him to get all that. But of course, there was that big long touchdown that he just blew past everybody. I mean, They got these, there's they talk about the cheetah. There's actually 2 cheetahs on this team.
Right.
So I'm in complete agreement, but I'm surprised it surprises you because Hill and Waddle, I guess maybe you're thinking that you didn't think there was room for both.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be that. Plus, I thought Hill would take a little bit of a downturn because he's away from Mahomes, and those two would be fighting for targets. I didn't think it'd be the passing volume would be there enough to supplant both of them as guys you can count on in your fantasy team.
Yeah.
And I was 100% wrong there, obviously, because there have been studs, and a lot of fantasy championship teams have one of those 2 players on their roster in their lineups every week.
Like I said, we have tons more questions but we can save that. We can save this little bits for next week. And plus we will have Davis in here and a lot of these are discussion questions, as I can see. So that's kind of cool. So it'll be easier for Davis to just come in. He won't even have to plug any players into our list here. So let's do tight ends. Dennis, why don't you start?
All right. Well, the obvious one to me is Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
He has been such a stud for fantasy managers this year, and he's always been someone that I stay away from every year. He always had the talent, but never succeeded. And this year he's done both, and he's been told fine for fantasy managers who took the plunge with Evan Ingram this year.
I think it took a little while, but I mean he was always solid with the Giants, and so there was the potential there that Ingram could.
There's always potential.
Yeah, so
he's always hurt. Or did
true.
Plus the quarterback situation there too wasn't fantastic. I mean, but even still, he's this year he's proven beyond belief that he's a stud tight end. He's been one of the go-to guys for Lawrence, and he's part of the uprising in that offense as well.
on a big game against Tennessee in week 14, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. But not just that, these last 4 weeks, finishes of, in half PPR, remind, TE5, TE1, of course that was a Tennessee game, TE13 and TE5, and, it puts him in my overall rankings at TE6. Which will probably change because I haven't updated this week's rest of season, but my top tight ends in fantasy are Travis Kelce, Pat Freiermuth, TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert, David Njoku, and Evan Engram at 6. George Kittle's bound to go up too because of his recency, and Darren Waller's bound to go up too. Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett round out the top 10. So, anyways, back to the question of surprises Mark Andrews surprised me. Mark Andrews. I wouldn't say exactly bust, but for the draft capital, I mean, if you're, drafting a tight end early is risky enough as it is, even Kelce. And, if Kelce's obviously a first round, I guess you could say he's a first round, draft pick. And even him, okay, but let's move on. Where are we at, Dennis?
And so my other tight end would be Juwan Johnson. The Saints, I think, being a tight end that you're always looking for is to score touchdowns. If you don't have one of the top tier tight ends, he scored 7 touchdowns on the year. Been a top 10 tight end 5 weeks this year, and I think it is a nice surprise to have him, as a featured pickup this year in the fantasy lineup.
Right. I think one guy to mention, of course, is Taysom Hill on the Saints as well. But he has a tight end designation in some leagues, and some leagues he does not. But anyway, so that takes us to the end of our fantasy season review. Well, part 1. We're going to do part 2 next week. Hopefully Davis Peng will join us, and we will be able to finish off those questions and also give our mock draft of who we think are the top first round draft picks in fantasy for 2023. Of course, naturally our thinking is that if the season was to start next week, with the way we feel about players right now, it's going to be completely different by August. But in any case, I just want to thank Briella for coming on the show this week as our guest. And
she loved it.
Yeah, and I want to thank Davis Peng for his Peng's picks. And I want to wish you a Happy New Year, my friend, and you and yours.
New Year, Richard. You and yours too. Happy New Year, everybody. Good luck this week in your championship.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Fantasy Edge for week 18.